Good afternoon. I can see one or two of you joining. It's lovely to have you with us this afternoon. If you would like to use the chat to say who you are, what you teach, where you're from, that would be great. It'd be good to interact with you just for the first few minutes before we officially start the session. Just give people the time to join. So drop a message in the chat if you are able to say who you are, where you are, how you are enjoying the language show online so far this weekend. And there's Tanya's back.
Hello.
Okay. So I think we've got 12 of you so far. We're just going to give it another couple of minutes to allow other people to join. Perhaps they've been in previous sessions and they're just switching over. Bonjour, Laure. And bonjour, Liz. Liz is over in Dubai. You are very welcome, Dubai. Isn't technology amazing that it allows us to join from all over the world? So please feel free to add a comment or a hello in the chat. Tell us where you are tuning in from. We'll just allow another minute and then I think we will make a start. So Laure is in Bath and Peter is in Boston. Hi there, Peter in Boston. Incredible. I think there's a big languages conference in Boston coming up. I'm sure a colleague of mine is heading out there next week. Julie is in London, Fiona in Bedfordshire, Miriam in London. Well, it's great to have you all with us. You are very welcome. I think I'm going to start sharing my screen. Danny. Okay, so good afternoon. Can you just give me a nod, Danielle, if the screen is sharing okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so my name is Susie Buell, and I'm joined today by my colleague Danielle Bourdet, and we are going to be talking to you about la Francosphère. I've gone forward a slide too many. The presentation will be divided into two sections. So I'm going to be talking to you about a club that I have been running as an enrichment in my current school, about some cultural starters that focus on some travels that I've done recently to Francophone Africa, and then a few suggestions of books and magazines that you might be interested in. And then I'm going to be handing over to Danielle for the second part of the session, and she's going to be talking to you a little bit more about diversity and decolonisation in French resources. So again, you are all very welcome, and to those of you who are joining on catch up later. So part one, I'm going to talk to you about my weekly Francosphère enrichment club. So this is aimed at years 3 to 6. So I work currently in a prep school in North Yorkshire, and I teach from year 3 up to year 11. And every Tuesday after school from 4:20 to 5 o'clock, we offer various enrichment sessions to our students. These normally last for half a term, so generally speaking, 6 weeks. And by the time the students arrive, it's roughly 35 to 40 minutes. So I'm just going to go through what we have been doing over the last few weeks. So I'm on my second term, half term, if you like, of enrichment. And the take up actually has been really, really impressive. So in week 1, we've looked at the question where in the world and what we mean by the word Francosphère. And I found some really nice infographics, which I've shared there on the screen, just to give the students a sense of how many millions of people speak French in the world and how French will really serve them well in their general lives. We've also looked at various texts. Now, obviously for a year 3, this is quite a complex text, but we've explored the maps. We also have a big Peters projection map, which I'm going to show you a little bit later, where the students have tried to impress me with their geographical awareness and show me that they can recognise where some of these French-speaking parts of the world are located. In week 2, I turned to Teachers Pay Teachers, fantastic website. I know certainly in the UK we tend to use TS resources, but Teachers Pay Teachers, an American website, to find things like flags and word searches. And as I say, we did a Peters projection activities. And by this point, the students had been taught a little bit about the Francosphère, about where in the world French is spoken. And then we took to placing some of the stickers and the flags onto the map. Some of their Um, some of their assumptions of where different places were a little bit off. Um, but we had a really nice afternoon just locating those places. In week 3, I shared with them a book that I wrote a couple of years ago called Polly va au Maroc. Um, Sadly, we had a day off school. We had a water problem in my school, so there was no toilets, no running water. So I had to share it as a PDF via Google Classroom. But again, that worked well. The students engaged with it, and it meant that they could still interact with their enrichment club, even though I wasn't there physically in person. In week 4, I wanted to sort of informally assess what they had been, what they'd picked up essentially from reading the story Bolivar au Maroc. Um, and once we'd done that in the form of a Kahoot quiz, we then watched an Amazon Prime documentary, which was actually in English, and again followed by a little quiz. And the documentary that we watched, I think you probably recognise the gentleman here from the series, I think Channel 4 series, the IT Crowd. Really short, sharp episodes, about 25 minutes in total. And this is 48 hours in Marrakesh. And again, some quite quirky content there. It was in English, which I thought was probably most appropriate for the year group that I was teaching, and they were fascinated to find out more about Morocco. In week 5, we had a taste of Morocco, so we did some Moroccan tea tasting, as you can see from the photos. A little bit of reading for pleasure, so I'll share some of the books and the Mary Glasgow publication articles with you a little bit later in the presentation. And then I also shared with them the photographs and kind of realia that I'd gathered when I was on my travels to Morocco this summer. They had lots and lots of questions, and yeah, it was a really really successful session. And then in week 6, we focused in on a specific child from Morocco. We do actually have a partner school link, but it wasn't possible, unfortunately, just because of the timings to actually zoom into the school. So we looked at this article, which is from a book called Les Enfants comme moi. I think it exists in English too. It's a fantastic publication. And here we learned a little bit about a child called Huda, who is 10 and lives in Morocco. And again, this kind of consolidated everything that we'd done over the previous 5 weeks. So that was just a little kind of taster of something that I've done outside of lessons. But I'm very much of the opinion that we should be trying, where possible, to drip the culture from the Francosphère into every lesson, or certainly once a week as a little bit of a quick starter, or what I call a learn now task. So since June, which was when I went off on my travels, I've been working on putting together 2 packs of multi-level cultural starters. So one focuses around Senegal and the other around Morocco. So I'm just going to share with you a few of those resources just to give you a taste of what that will look like when it's completed. So, Le Senegal, I spent 3 weeks in Senegal. It was an absolutely incredible visit. We had 12 teachers from the United States come over to Senegal for a cultural and linguistic visit. And the photographs that I took, I decided it was a waste not to share them. So I've put them into various slides, different formats, certainly in the UK with GCSE in mind, but the slides are, as I say, very differentiated in the sense that some of them are more suited towards younger learners, and some of them perhaps a little bit more suited towards GCSE students, so sort of 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So here you've got an image that I took on the Ile de Gorée, and you may or may not be used to the practice of Palm W. So giving the students a photograph and then giving them the mnemonic Palm W, which stands for people, action, location, mood, often weather, but if in the photograph it's taken indoors, you might just use the W as what else. And that's to try and inspire the students to start thinking about trying to form 5 basic sentences in French, which will then help them for their GCSE speaking exam. There are quite a lot of food photographs, so I hope you've had your lunch. This one is théboudienne, which is the national dish of Senegal. So just to see from the photograph, can they work out what the ingredients are? And as a challenge task, which I've included in every single slide, could they find out for themselves what the name of the dish is? That might be something that they go away and do after the lesson. The next one, again, focused around Senegal. The motto, if you like, of Senegal is Un peuple, un but, une foi. So, could they use their dictionary skills to find out the meaning of the sign, which was found in a school that I was fortunate enough to visit in Dakar? And then, if their geographical awareness allows for that, could they then deduce where in the French speaking world this is? For this one, what products can they buy from the shop in Saint Louis? Again, very much GCSE level vocabulary, the kind of shop vocabulary that they might need to recognize in a foundation paper. And then as a challenge, could they read out the phone number in French? This was a place where I was fortunate enough to stay in Saint Louis in Senegal. So this is just a very simple vrai ou faux activity. So chez Marie-Rosée, je peux réserver une chambre triple à 1000 francs CFA de plus. And then for the défi, c'est combien le petit déjeuner? So they would just look at the photograph, and as a very quick activity, perhaps while you're taking the register or organizing your admin, you could get them to do that. And that's a really simple and ready-made activity for you to use without too much fuss or preparation. Here we've got a sign for a business renting various types of transport. So I thought this one might be a nice one. I almost didn't use it because of the lack of accents. And then I thought that actually I would use that as a challenge and see if they could locate where the missing accents should actually be. Another vrai or faux task, I actually ended up taking a couple of pieces of art from this fantastic artist away with me, resulting in 20 kilos of extra baggage. So this poster is advertised in a French photography exhibition, and as a challenge task, when are the exhibitions running to and from? So seeing if they can recognise some of the dates and numbers. This was taken in the school that we were visiting in Saint Louis. So the task is how many words can you translate from this notice in a Senegalese classroom? And I think you just about be able to make out it's about les droits de l'enfant, which is a really big driving force in Senegal, just as much as it is in the UK. And as a challenge task, can they recognise from some of those signs what is meant by les droits de l'enfant? Moving on to Le Maroc, this is the one that I've spent more time working on, so you'll find that there are more examples. So this was where I spent about half an hour doing not a trolley dash, but a photo dash, if you like, around a Moroccan supermarket. I got a few very strange looks from the employees. But how many of these signs do the students recognise, and where in the Francosphère were they taken? And if they recognise the Arabic script, they would hopefully be able to work out that perhaps it is Morocco, they might guess Algeria, etc. Um, I did have an ice cream stop at this particular place, Les Glaces de Marie. How many flavours can you identify at the ice cream shop in Marrakesh? And can they work out what vente à emporter means? Lots and lots of spices, as you would imagine, in Morocco. So I took a photo of this sign in both Arabic and in French. So what do they learn about Morocco from this sign? And as a challenge task, what is the language at the top of the sign? So just getting them to think that in the Francosphère, French might be one of the languages spoken, but perhaps, as is the case in Morocco, it is one language which features amongst many, and pretend, well, probably more and more so, English is spoken as a second language alongside Arabic, but certainly in the south of Morocco, still lots of French spoken. And I was quite interested to find that in the north of Morocco, because of the colonial past, it was certainly much more Spanish than it was French. These signs were taken in a street. I think this was in Casablanca. So, which items cost the most to dry clean at Macro Sec? And how many other clothes items do you recognize? And if you just take a little look at the sign on the left, you'll see that there's also reference to a djellaba and a kaftan and various other items of clothing that again might give them the sense that this isn't just a regular French dry cleaners. This sign was taken in Casablanca as well at the train station. So, what does the sign say? And why is there a salle de prière? Again, making reference to the different religions that are practiced in Morocco. In this photograph, again taken in Casablanca, you can see La Mosquée Hassan Cinq. Can they, perhaps if they have their Chromebooks or if they have an iPad in the lesson, can they find out 5 interesting facts, either about the city or the monument? And also as a challenge task, who is Hassan Cinq? This was taken a couple of days later in Tangier. I thought it was a lovely a lovely sign, an opportunity to bring up weather. So, how would you translate the sign, and why is the sign in both French and Arabic? And then I think this was possibly my favorite place on the visit to Morocco, Chefchaouen, the Blue City, also known as La Perle Bleue. Can they find out 5 interesting facts, including why it's known as La Perle Bleue? And as a challenge task, where in Morocco is Chefchaouen? Can they locate it? And what are the main languages spoken? I don't think that photograph really does it justice. It really is a beautiful, beautiful blue city. Um, while I was in both Senegal and Morocco, the people there were celebrating the end of Eid, or Eid was about to come to an end, and everywhere you went, there were people selling sheep. It was quite an incredible sight. So finding out, perhaps as a challenge task, why the families buy a sheep at this time, and also what other religions are practiced in Morocco. Um, this was the day that I tried warm camel milk for the first time. I can't say that I would recommend it. So c'est du lait de cheval, c'est du lait de vache, c'est du lait de chameau. And as a défi, fais-moi la description d'une des photos. So again, using that photo task idea, getting the students to maybe say who is in the photo, where it is, what's going on, what the weather is like, etc. Another vrai or faux task, so the sort of description that you might hope for from a student describing a photo. Sur la photo, il y a 4 enfants, il y a 6 hommes, ils sont en train de nager, il y a une rivière, il fait assez chaud. I've started to do this quite regularly with my year 11 class at the moment, giving them examples, showing them a model answer if you like, and getting them to say, is it true or false? And if there's something particularly false about it, so you might throw a red herring in there, can they then add one or more sentences, or could they perhaps correct the incorrect sentence? Okay, so for part 3, we're going to look at some books and magazines. So I myself have been writing sort of culturally rich books for the last 5 or 6 years, since I left the University of York. So you may have come across the titles in the series Les Aventures de Polyglotte dans le monde francophone. Currently, they exist for France, Belgium, Switzerland, Quebec, and Morocco. In fact, the Morocco one I wrote before my travels, so it was quite interesting to see for myself some of the things that I had written about. Coming soon is Guadeloupe and Senegal, obviously based on my recent travels. And then I'm really keen to also look at Martinique and Réunion, Saint-Pierre-Miquelon, and Guyane, perhaps some of the lesser known places in the Francosphère. So each of these books are presented as PDFs. They're 30 plus pages in full colour. And what I think is particularly nice about these, particularly if you're a non-specialist or if you've never been to these places, is there are lots of hyperlinks to external videos. So anything that is underlined, you as the teacher can click on that link to find out a little bit more about that particular aspect of the country. It includes songs, games. So the ones that I showed you earlier, Quizlet and Kahoot, and also full English translation. And what's particularly nice is that there's audio read by a native speaker. So I felt that it was really important that the students had the opportunity to hear different voices from around the Francosphère, so that they didn't think that there was just one standard version of French. So this is just a little screen grab of the next book, which I've been working on, I would probably say, for the last 9 months, and I don't seem to be getting very far. Les Aventures de Polyglotte dans le monde francophone, Polyglotte en Guadeloupe. And here is just one of the slides taken from that book. Danielle and I are both really keen to not shy away from the colonial past of France. I think it's important to address that. I think more and more teachers are doing so in their teaching. So that just gives you a little bit of a sense of how we are aiming to do that. And certainly since my visit to Senegal, that will be my intention when I talk about Senegal, and certainly including reference to the Ile de Gorée, which I would say was probably one of the most emotive parts of my 5-week trip to Francophone Africa. This one is taken from, just to show you some sort of screen grabs from some of the other books. This one is taken from the most recent Poly story, which is about Morocco. And it was really actually quite nice because I travel around lots and lots of cities to see all of the different coloured taxis for myself, and just to think about perhaps presenting the topic of colours, but through a slightly different cultural lens. In Essaouira, I've just recently got back from Essaouira. In June time, there is the annual Festival Gnawa, So the Gnawa music is very, very famous in that particular region. And if you Google Festival Gnawa, there are some beautiful, beautiful posters. I think the festival spans about 30 years now, 3 days worth of concert. And again, as I said earlier, if you click on that link where you've got the blue hyperlink there, it will take you to a YouTube video where you can actually see one of the most up-to-date festivals that took place in Essaouira. This is probably the highlight of my trip to Morocco. I was super excited to see that the goats hadn't been superimposed onto photos as I perhaps first thought, but that they were actually there for all to see, and that the goats were indeed climbing the trees. So why are they in the trees? And is it in fact true that this happens all over Morocco, which actually it doesn't? And just to show you here, this was me with the climbing goats, and I got to hug a little baby goat as well, which was lovely. I think on the day I said in my book Polyvar Maroc, I talk about the tree climbing goats, and on our next stop, our guide says that we might well see some. This is the best news. And actually, about 10 minutes later, we did stop and pull up the minibus, and that's me on the right, enjoying the views and making friends with the local goats. Let me just check that I didn't skip through. So just a few books, some that I picked up on my travels. So these made up the 20 kilos of extra luggage that I brought back with me, and some that actually I picked up more recently on Amazon. So we've got Ma Nouvelle Amie Zahra, which is very much set in a Moroccan context, and J'aime ma famille, which you can possibly see at the bottom. The lady is wearing her headscarf. The clothes throughout are very much representative of Morocco. And I think, again, it's quite difficult sometimes to find reading books or storybooks, particularly if you teach younger learners, that do contain faces other than white European faces. So I was really pleased to be able to pick up some authentic books. The one in the middle, Les La Reda et Anis Ça vient vivre au Maroc, is another one. I would say that that's probably a little bit more aimed at older learners. Le Maroc des enfants, with lots of games and puzzles. So that's quite a nice one if you are running a club or a society, or you just want to use some of those tasks as a basic starter. And then here's some books that are mainly from my travels to Senegal. So a couple of basic readers like Couleurs du Sahel. The one in the top center, Parle-moi de ces femmes, is a gorgeous book about women in Senegal who have made history. So women who are changing the world. The tour guide in Senegal that I got talking to just underneath the Monument de la Résistance very kindly gave me the Répertoire touristique et culturel Sénégal. So that just gives me some of the main sites and places to visit in Senegal. So that was very kind of him. And then in the middle, Le Bossu et le Ninkinanka was the only book that I managed to find on my travels, which has actually got a combination. It's a bilingual reader in both French and in Wolof, which is the regional language of Senegal. On the left, you've got Le Vent de l'Arbre, so a series of contes, various stories from the African continent. And then at the bottom, I think this one was from Amazon, a secondhand book from Amazon, just some gorgeous, gorgeous photos of children and people from Senegal. And then the final slide, you've got Demdik, which is from the same series as the previous slide, just a very, very basic reader about some children on their journey to school. But again, the faces, the cultural references, the taxi brousse, as opposed to perhaps just a regular UK bus or a French school bus. Mes Images du Sénégal, I bought from Amazon France. Colaban, again, you can see there is taken in the market scene. We've got Aujourd'hui au Maroc, which was from Amazon, and then Des Papiers Pas Possibles, which is a really, really lovely story about the importance of family in Senegal. So just a few ideas there. And then I couldn't go without mentioning this lovely book. I mention this in pretty much every presentation that I do. Santé en poésie et contes du tour du monde. Whatever country you are focusing on within your language lessons, there is a poem about it. And as we have been focusing in my Francosphère club about Morocco, it would have been remiss of me to not include this poem. So Couscous et dessert, and even for very young learners, perhaps on a very basic level, just using it to practice pronunciation. And then also more often than not, the students want to find out what it means, and because they were so interested in the food and the drink, that's actually what led to the Moroccan tea tasting session. A couple of magazine extracts now. If you are in the UK, you will know that sadly the Mary Glasgow magazines are no longer available to a UK market. But if you are overseas, in the States or Canada, you will still have access to these. So this is a gorgeous article about Senegal, really easy to access, lots of nice cultural information. And again, if you look to the right-hand side of the screen, you will see that there is reference to the colonial past of Senegal, which again, we both feel is really, really vital. Vacances en français, so here you've got les îles Anglo-Normandes, but equally you've got Morocco, you've got Djibouti, you've got the lesser known Vanuatu and La Vallée d'Ouest. Um, Probably because I have been focusing heavily on Morocco, I've included these two, so Le Raid Quad Passion and then Le Marathon International des Sables. And again, a lot of the younger boy learners in my classes were really interested to find out more about that. We're doing the transport topic at the moment with my year fours, so they were particularly interested to find out about this. And then with some of my older learners, my journée scolaire, some of my year 11 students at the moment are doing revision of the topic of school and future plans. So we've just used this again, just a slightly different cultural context. The topic is still very much daily routine. What does my typical school day look like? But what's nice about this article is that it compares a child in France with a child in Morocco. So just to recap there, those multi-level cultural starters were obviously based on my recent travels. Eventually, the aim, and it's very nearly finished with Morocco, is to have a full set of 100 plus differentiated slides for each country. And what I'd also like to do, because again, I think it would be a waste not to share them, is to include a link to the full drive of additional photographs that I took whilst I was on my travels. So Danielle will share our contact details on the very last slide, but if you want to know more about some of my travels or the work that I have been doing over the last few years on cultural capital, then if you want to visit polyglotlanguages.co.uk, or you can find me on Facebook. And then just to finish, before I hand over to Danielle, the work that we do in schools, we don't do it for awards and bells and whistles. We do it because it's the right thing to do. It's what complements the grammar, the vocabulary, the phonics. It's the golden thread, if you like, that should run through everything. But in November 2018, I just recently joined this school, and through the international work and the global learning and the links to the Francosphère that I engaged in with the students, we did actually gain the International Schools Award. And if that's something that you and your school might be interested in, it is completely free of charge. And there's a link there at the bottom of the slide. More recently, in my most recent school, we joined the Global School Alliance. The Global School Alliance, unlike the British Council, is actually a business. It's not operated as a charity, so there is a cost implication. But for a very nominal fee, we submitted evidence at St John Fisher Catholic High School, and we were awarded with the Global Bronze School Award. And again, that makes for a nice letterhead. It sends a great message home to parents and students that actually in the school where you are, we take global and international learning really seriously. So from me, I would just say keep in touch. Any questions, more information, please do get in touch, susiebuell@gmail.com. We will save a little bit of time at the end for any questions. I should have said at the start, actually, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, either for myself or Danielle, please do put them in the chat and we'll try and save a few minutes at the end to answer those. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Danielle. I'm going to hand over to you. Merci.
Okay, thanks. And I will start sharing mine. Right. Thank you, Susie, for so much. I mean, such a lovely trip, isn't it? Through warmer climes. My bit is slightly more intense. We're going to look at diversity and decolonization in French resources. So both Susie and I are working on a project which we call Francosphère. And in that, as Susie's mentioned a couple of times, underpinning all that is the idea of decolonization. Personally, it sounds a bit scary. And I know the notion is not yet completely clear as to what decolonizing the curriculum is. And we know why, or we should, but how? And there is a lot of unlearning to be done about the resources. So I'm concentrating on resources in MFL and in French in particular. I am no expert in decolonization, being the person I am, but I do have close encounters with what it is to, because of family circumstances, to want that decolonization to happen. They are experts, though. So if you feel you don't know what decolonization is, if you feel that you don't know where to go, there are places where you can go. You can access these links later on with diverse educators, where there are discussions and webinars about that. A major name to mention is Lisa Panford, who is a senior lecturer at St. Mary's, and who has a webinar on the diverse educators website, specifically about MFL resources. And she makes 2 points, which I have actually tried to make since 1987, when I first started writing material, which is about doing away with colorblind approaches in MFL. So we don't want the 1950s approach where everybody was white, etc. The second one is going beyond the tokenistic nods to diversity, and I've put diversity in brackets, in inverted commas, because it's quite a loaded word in itself. Normally we mention the French-speaking world when it comes to food, festivals, immigration, poverty. I mean, it's specific areas, and so we would ideally try to go beyond that. If you are interested in finding the how you can approach this, there is a special interest group from ALL, if you remember, created by Lisa Panford and Melina Irvin. I hope I'm saying her name right, I'm not sure. Decolonizing the MFL, again, by Lisa and Melina, is a Facebook group where I post a lot of stuff, and so does Susie. So places to go if you want further help. Yesterday, there was a talk at the Language Show by Ellie Chettle-Cully, who mentioned going beyond diversity. So if you haven't seen her talk, it could be a good idea to go and listen. And she mentioned Haiti, which was interesting because we are, Susie and I, both working on materials about Haiti. So Francosphère is not just a pretty logo. We are trying to write materials that will allow teachers to use and make it easy for teachers to do what they're supposed to do by the national curriculum, which is to liberate learners from their insularity and build the cultural capital, looking at different places around the Francosphère. We would like to provide materials that avoid that Eurocentric representation of the French-speaking world that we've had for so long, but keeping in mind that it has to be easily accessible to learners, so comprehensible input. We want to go beyond the negative connotations of Francophonie, which is a little bit colonial in itself, and also going beyond the why, into the why French is spoken there, and to what extent, as well as where French is spoken, and to what extent is important, because when we call a French-speaking country, actually it isn't necessarily French-speaking. It is a minority of people for historical reason. We want to allow for conversations to happen and to decolonize the narrative. You might be aware of the Nigerian novelist Chimamanda Adichie, when she says that, when she warns of the danger of a single story, we need to present other narratives. And Liliane Thuram, in his book La Pensée Blanche, says we need to liberate ourselves from La Pensée Blanche, which has sort of had such an impact on what we're doing today still. So Francosphère will be online, and we started writing materials on Haiti, as I said. And we do want to offer that diversity. We do want to go into the geography, whether festivals, arts, the daily life of kids, the food, the songs, everything, with worksheets. But we also want to, we also want to go beyond that and offer teachers the possibility of explaining a little bit more at the level, at how, according to how comfortable you feel with those notions, how much you know. So we want to provide links for you to go to. With higher levels, it's obviously much easier to go into all that. For instance, and I think I can't click on that, so I'll have to go into that. In Haiti, it is very clear why the country is so poor. Yet it's not very well known at all. And maybe some of you know that Haiti, after becoming the first Black Republic in 1804, was re-invaded, or almost re-invaded, by the French, unless they paid 150 million francs, so in 1825. So you can imagine the size of the debt that they had to repay. So they had to borrow to repay. And all that meant that they were repaying a debt until 1947. So not something that is often discussed. There are links here to that if you're interested in looking at that. So we'll go into the website. It's better through Edge than Google Chrome for some reason. Google Chrome can't see the pictures. So we have everything is free at the moment, because they are still we are still populating the website. We have, sorry, this is not the one I want. Oops. Right, hang on. I'm trying to get to the content. All right, that's it. So we're trying to have a, I don't know if you can see that. We're trying to have a, there are 3 packs at 3 levels, some using the same input, the same stimulus, and regular rubrics like general facts, the weather, special occasions, specific things on a country. So we have a song for Haiti, the history of the place, and obviously done differently at different level. If you go into level 1 for instance, the presentation, you'll have very easy things. So it's all fairly using a lot of cognates, for instance, using the same language. There are several sheets. You can do just the one or several if you want. A little clever corner. Here, for instance, it's about a transparent word. You also have a teacher's corner where you have all the answers and the script. Level 2, key stage 3, 4 would be a little bit more difficult with longer texts and maybe more linguistic work and listening exercise where you have to spot differences, that sort of stuff, with teacher's notes. Level 3 will ask more about prior knowledge, will require more from the students, longer text, again, listening and gap fill, looking at linguistic points, discussions, so useful not just for the Francosphère and exposing students to a different culture, but also obviously remembering what we're doing it for, which is working towards an exam. There is a song which I hope I'm going to have the time to play a little bit, which is by a Haitian musician who's given us the authorization to use this song. The song is, well, I'll play it now. I'll do that with the words, and I leave you to listen. Can you tell me if you hear it? So it's, can you hear the sound? Is that okay?
Louis, G. Oh là les enfants, vous aimez les maths? Ouais. Moi j'adore les maths. Poussez. Je suis tout nu dans la rue, sans aucune direction. Parfois les gens profitent, m'abusent sans raison. J'aimerais faire quelque chose d'important dans ma vie. Chaque jour qui se passe, je m'inquiète pour mon avenir. Loin de ma destinée, quoi faire, quoi décider. Mes proches m'ont rien légué, montre-moi le chemin. Faut aller, faut aller, faut aller, aller à l'école. Faut aller, faut aller, faut aller, aller à l'école. Petit garçon, mais dis-moi que fais-tu dans la rue? Faut aller, aller à l'école. Maman t'a bien éduqué, mais il faut que tu t'instruises. Faut aller, aller à l'école. Hein? À tous les enfants du monde. Haïti, petit garçon, petite fille, n'oublie jamais le chemin de la raison. Si t'es perdu, ressaisis-toi, tes rêves peuvent t'emmener au-delà de l'horizon. Faut aller, faut aller, faut aller, aller à l'école. Faut aller.
I'm just advancing.
Mais il faut que tu t'instruises. Faut aller à dormir, faut aller, aller, aller. Arrête de tourner sur l'asphalte, tu pas tu ennuies. N'oublie pas que t'es à l'école.
I'll stop it there. So that song is quite a powerful song to use for various reasons. Why is it so important? Would you expect that in a rap, or in a song in Europe, aller à l'école? So we've used that for the little ones. Obviously, the words won't be understood, but we can still use the visual and ask and use known language to work on it, as also maybe spot the word école. Level 2, also key stage 3, 4, maybe a gap fill on known words, and then writing captions to photos, and then more information about what is it, why are we talking about schools in so much in Haiti, and sort of photo work for GCSE with teacher's notes. So that's some of what is available on the website at the moment. And that's me done. So if, as Susie said, if you want to contact us, we can give you all the details. I was going to share some more places where you can have really good information, but we've run out of time, and I would like to leave some time to address your questions if there are any. So I haven't monitored the chat when I was speaking, but I've seen that there are some comments, queries.
Yeah, just a few comments about Mary Glasgow magazines. So I think the feeling that that's a shame that that's no longer available in the UK. And then there was a question about ELI magazines, which I have used personally, and they are very good. Perhaps not quite as culturally rich as the Mary Glasgow magazines, but certainly a nice alternative. And then could we put some links in the chat? I think, Laura, if you can contact us direct, and that goes for any of the people watching the session, the chat unfortunately won't be saved. So if you do have any questions, or if you'd like us to share anything, just do get in touch with us direct. Thank you.
Yes, so if there is any of the yeah, so French dialects, I can see there is somebody asking about French dialects. Well, we make a point, there will be something on the website, for instance, about Haiti, about the fact that Haiti is the major language in Haiti is Creole, Haitian. So we actually, Susie is writing some worksheets on the accessibility of some of the Creole Haitian because of the similarities with French. And the same would apply to Senegal, where we would, say that, French is part of the selection of languages available in that country.
All right, well, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and please do stay in touch. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, and have a good end of conference.
Yeah.